All right, Flex. Welcome to Friday Flex. This is Keith and Joseph, and thank you all so much for your time. We want to jump in today to ask you where has your mental map taken you? So, as you know, we've been talking about mental maps for the last few Fridays, and the importance of setting the right destination and having the right locations and the right indicators on one's map. So just wanted to jump in and start with, we will only make the decisions that our maps think are best. So we're operating in our with the whatever update or operating system our mental map has, we're only going to operate within that system. And sometimes, because we may not have updated, then we're going to make decisions which are potentially those in which have continuously got us in the same spot. And sometimes we don't, the spots we're in are not the most ideal. And so I think for most people, this would be refreshing to get another perspective on how to make different changes to one's map, but also to understand that based off of what we have understood in life and our different experiences, we're only going to do what we think is best, you know? And it's difficult because this is a level of maturity that requires those who are in the process of updating their maps to understand that, okay, so this person is only doing what they think is best. And it may not be the most ideal way of communicating or way of acting, but this is all they have. And so the goal is to see where they are and kind of help them along the way if that's our position, because we can't just solicit help, you know, unsolicited help, you know, especially if somebody doesn't ask. But it allows us to give grace in the sense of, hey, this person doesn't know any better, or this is all they know, and therefore let me understand them a little bit better and let me help to just be more empathetic, right?
Yes, definitely. As you were speaking, I was just thinking about my relationship with my mom and the fact that that's literally what she used to do with me growing up. Instead of, you can say, negative reinforcement, as a child, right? If you do something wrong, if your parents do not ask and find out why you made that decision, young man, why are you working on that mental map?
Yeah. Right.
Of course, you're a little kid. You only know what you see in your immediate environment. But as you are, again, learning, if you are being punished, whipped, or whatever it may be, spoken harshly to, then it doesn't help you to acquire and learn new tools and techniques. It only reinforces the bad habits or the poor decisions that we're making. Of course, I'm speaking about a child, but as we get older, sometimes if our mental map is stuck on kid mode, then unfortunately you can be an adult still working on an outdated software, for lack of better words.
Yeah, and to think about that, we have so many experiences that are, as we mentioned before, that are being added to our mental map. Yeah. And so sometimes we may pick up something, or we may implement something that we've didn't know we picked up at that time, but it's with us, and when we experience a situation, where someone makes us angry, the first thing we do is yell, you know, or we start pointing our finger,
Yes.
you know, and
Ball up our fist.
yeah,
Our chest gets tight, breathing is shallow and quick, and we get all tense and
Yeah.
so forth. So
and so, and generally it's because we've seen this before, and even in cartoons we see this in cartoons, and we have so many influences around us that are steadily programming, adding to our mental map, and we're just kind of innocent bystanders in the sense of we're just taking all this information in and we're not really filtering anything. So because there's no filtration process, whatever we experience, it's just like, oh, okay, all right. I'm not really going to think about what I say. I'm just going to say it. And after it's said, then I'm going to be defensive just in case I hurt somebody's feelings. Now I need to defend myself because I've offended somebody else with my words because they weren't really thought about and they weren't really mindful. And so when we are dealing with someone with a outdated map, or our map is outdated, we have to realize that the impact that we're perceiving from someone else with an outdated map is not going to be the most accurate of how they feel really deep down inside. And us with the outdated map, the people that we're trying to communicate with are not going to potentially get the best communication efforts on our behalf. So, and another idea or understanding in the realm of neurolinguistic programming is that people are generally moving towards something they want or moving away from something they don't want. And so you can see and I'll experience this very soon, but with kids, they generally will tell you no first, or they'll tell you no, but they're already in process of not doing what you want them not to do, of doing what you don't want them to do. And so, because whatever they're experiencing or whatever they think the ultimate goal is, whether it's to get this toy, that is the goal. Whatever you're saying is secondary information. And so therefore, they're going to work towards it. Or the lack of, or the absence of not doing is them working away from it. And so so in NLP it talks about working towards something or moving away from something. And this is how we indicate where our mind is. And so I often in communication, I'm listening to what people are saying, what they're not saying. And so in our line of work, we quite often we're on hold or we are on the phone with the representative, and sometimes I'm wanting to know something. I'm wanting to know something, and I don't get the right answer. So, and it's not even related to what I've called about. It's just some other answer. And so generally, and Joseph will tell you, I'll say, so what I didn't hear you say, and then I can address, okay, why isn't what I'm asking answered? Because sometimes people will say so many things and there's really not a response. There's just a bunch of words, filler words, and the question that you really want to know, there's no answer to it. And so I think sometimes in politics, though, you'll notice that a lot. They'll say, so what do you think about climate change? Well, back in the 70s, my mother. and then they'll talk for 5 minutes and you're just going to be staring, And it's one of those situations where if a person doesn't really know how to pay attention to the communication styles that somebody's doing, then you can really be wasting your time and allowing that other person to waste their time. And so I think it's just amazing how communication, the different ways, the subtle ways communication works. Because even if somebody's words may not say, somebody may not say something, but their actions, so, you know, they say actions speak louder than words, right? And you can tell somebody doesn't want to do something, even if you ask them a question, they may not say anything, but you asked a child, hey, clean up your room, or hey, can you pick this up? And they may not say anything, and they'll just keep sitting there. And even though there's no communication, verbal communication that's happened, it's
the body.
The body
is telling you exactly what they're thinking.
Yeah.
It always comes out.
Yeah. and in the words of the great philosopher Robert Kelly, my mind's telling me no, but my body. So this is how the mind works. Sometimes we may not say anything, but physically our body's like, you know, or you know. So these are some of the things that we have to be able to understand, that we're always in NLP, we're always communicating. Whether we don't say anything or whether we say something, we're always communicating. And generally there has to be some level of congruency between what we say and what we do. Because you could be saying, in your mind, you could be saying no, but you're shaking your head. Actually, it's really hard to do that. It's hard to say no, but shake your head yes. Have you all tried that? Like just say no, but shake your head yes. No, it's hard. It's hard because you know there's always some level of your body is always trying to flow in proper order with the mind. It's just the way it works. Even from like the yoga standards or the yoga philosophy, the body is always trying to be in line with the mind, and so when there's incongruency, then we feel uncomfortable, right?
And you find that certain postures are very difficult to get into if we have certain, you could say, glitches, incongruencies in our thinking and in our mind. One thought I'll share, to stay on the same subject matter, but just something that was really interesting. I came across the other day, there's one gentleman, his name is Kevin Hodham, like Hodham, like his last name. So Kevin Hodham, he's a mentalist, okay? And so one was curious, like, okay, what kind of tricks and stuff that he does. And so he has the ability to read your mind. It's not that, and he makes it clear, he doesn't like go into your head and read what you got going on there, but he's really good at reading your body. And so he had a die. Of course, there's 6 sides, 6 numbers. And he would have someone hold the die. You know, he won't look at them. He'll turn away completely back towards you. And you just pick a number on that die, show it to someone else so that everyone else knows which number you picked, and you completely cover your hands, put on the table. And of course, these individuals are doing this in a room. They have microphones and stuff. So, you know, he have them count from 1 to 6 or from 6 to 1, and then have them look at him directly and count from 1 to 6. And the young lady, she actually picked the number 2 on the die, but he can't see it. He doesn't know. But just to prove how the mind and what we're thinking, how it eventually comes out in the body, when she's counting, when she got to the number 2, because she's thinking in her mind 2, she externally, physically, kind of exaggerate or kind of overemphasize or so, like 1, 2, 3, you know, kind of like that. Like maybe not in her tone, but just her body.
Yeah.
You know, like she did this little bob a certain way, like 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, like this. And so he was able to figure out, and that was just something on an easy level. Of course, there's more complicated things down the road, but just to prove the point that even if someone is doing a magic trick, even though it's not quite magic, but how you can actually read someone and be able to know what they're thinking or what move they might be taking, like in the game of chess. And sometimes you know, of course, the person has to protect their king, you know, and that they may move certain pieces a certain way. Now, they could be moving their knight in a certain position, or they could be moving a pawn in a certain position, either to sacrifice that piece to get you to move in that direction so they can come around another way, or if they don't know what they're doing, which could be the case too.
Yeah.
But if someone is, you know, really into the game of chess and how they need to move and so forth, they'll move their piece in such a way to get the other person, in one sense you could say distracted, make them move in one direction while they're coming around another way. We see this even in sports, like football, you know. They may run a play where it's going to go to the strong side, and then they actually have the running back go to the weak side and run around that way, you know, to go for the touchdown. So we see this a lot in the world. Foxes do the same thing. That's why they say someone is as smart as a fox or as clever as a fox. A fox will run in one direction, then it will backtrack and then jump like 20 feet or more and then run in a whole different direction. So if there's hounds chasing, the hounds will go into the old direction, or you can say the initial direction that the fox was going in. Meanwhile, the fox is running in a completely opposite direction. So body language, you're thinking, to move in a way that, or shall I say, our thoughts are eventually expressed in our immediate environment in terms of our body language and how we act in the world.
Yeah, so that's really, like when you mentioned about the fox, I thought to myself, that's such a clever tactic.
It's clever.
Like, it's such a clever tactic.
Actually, one small little detail, I'm so sorry. It's like, as soon as I get started, I feel like a book that just opens up and all these pages start flying through. So, as I was mentioning, our thoughts and how we think, and sometimes, because again, we're acquiring information through our modalities, as we were talking about in the last several sections or sessions. And so sometimes those modalities and what we acquire the information, we will express them in what they refer to as representative modalities, is what you see in NLP. And so those representative modalities, in short, could be if you're feeling confident, you might wear a certain type of cologne. You might dress a certain way if you feel confident, or if someone feels sexy, or if someone is feeling playful, they may dress and they may walk and behave and speak a certain way. So a lot of times, depending on the mood, how we're feeling, and our thoughts, sometimes we will wear certain colognes or fragrances. We'll dress a certain way. We'll walk and talk. Just like it reminds me of even in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is asking Krishna, how does one walk? How does one talk? How does one, what is the mindset? What is the mentality? What's going on internally? And how is it expressed externally for a self-realized person? But again, those what we call those external things, body language, cologne, clothing, so forth, those are called representative modalities because they represent what we think and how we're feeling inside. It's really interesting, NLP.
Yeah. I was thinking, I try to, for my own self, I try to wear cologne most of the time, or at least essential oils. I don't really wear cologne, but essential oils. But it allows me to walk places and know smell good. Nobody has to be like, what does that smell? Because the last thing you want to smell is rank and just tart. And so, but anyway, but no, it's very important to recognize that we are always communicating, whether verbally or non-verbally, and we're communicating in a way that represents our upbringing and our value system. And so when we are, as we talked about last week, if we do not get in the habit of questioning our value system, as growing up, and our upbringing and our value system, if we don't get in the habit of questioning these things, then we're going to be on continuously an outdated map. And therefore, it'll be much more difficult to have really deep, profound relationships when we don't know what's inside of us. We never question how we act. And I always, ever since therapy and learning about different forms of communication, I was impressed with the idea that you can understand somebody when they're angry. You can understand how they truly are when they're angry, because everything that may not have come out is going to come out. And it's going to come out hot. Hot and warm, and just full force, because what's been pent up will come out in a direct, concise, or just a full display of how somebody deep down inside is. That's why those who have a level of peace, those who are mature, before they blow up, they're watching their breath, they're breathing, taking deep breaths, and they're thinking, trying to come up or working on a way to best communicate how they feel. And one of the first things that happens is in the mind of someone who is mature, who understands, who has updated mental map, is they understand this person is doing the best they have, doing the best they can with what they have. Mm-hmm. And so most people do not think like that. It's like, you did this to me, and and even driving on the roads, we see somebody pulls in front of us, or someone is driving really slow in the left lane. I experienced that this morning, and we're normally angry. Oh, this person is stopping my progress.
I have somewhere to be right now.
I have somewhere to be. They don't understand the importance, the gravity of the situation in my life. They don't understand. Therefore, I curse them. We curse them with our words, but we don't really think, oh, they don't really know I have somewhere to go. No. They don't really understand that there's an emergency. They don't understand that there's somebody behind me that's wanting me to move over, so they have to essentially move over. And so because we don't think in that way, we normally don't operate in this kind of mindfulness setting, then of course we're going to get angry. And as soon as that happens, we're just like, as soon as we drive past, we just want to stare at them.
Yeah.
Or her. And just look
at them like,
You know, it's one of those things that we don't even think about these subconscious things that we do, and the lack of grace that we to give other people. But yet and still, we want people to give us that grace. Yeah. You know, if I'm having a bad day and I just want to go slow in the left lane, I'm not thinking about this is the passing lane. I'm not thinking about that. I had a rough day. Who's thinking about that? And I don't want anybody to honk at me. Let me sulk. I want to be sad right now. I want to be sad while I'm driving. And so because we are in a position where we want people to understand, be very empathetic, sympathetic towards our position, that we will, out of just sadness, we'll do things we don't normally do, and uncharacteristic things, maybe. And so we will want people to have grace. So when we are dealing with someone else who has put a wrench, or someone who has made what we're trying to do much more difficult, we should also understand, okay, this is not about me. I need to go somewhere, or I need to do something, and this person is not understanding, so let me move around them and not flip them off, or let me do what I have to do and not verbally criticize them, and let me act with the same grace and courtesy that I would want somebody to treat me with. Mm-hmm. But because we live in such a society, we're not forward thinking like that. We're not compassionate like that. I think about how we don't really even know what love is. And you want to say it? What's love got to do with it? I know you want to say it.
I was actually thinking of another song. I want to know what love is. That was the song I was thinking about.
But, you know, we don't really even know what this love is. So we are operating with people that we supposedly love, but we don't really understand. You know, I meet so many people that say, and this is not directly, I mean, I guess I'm directly taking shots, but please, no, hopefully you don't get offended. But people say, oh, I love, you know, this race of people, or I love animals, but I eat them. But, you know, it's like our conception, our wording, our verbiage, it's terrible because we don't understand the words we're using. We don't understand the words that are coming out of our mouths. So
definitely do not.
So we'll say stuff, and if we really understood what we were saying meant, then a lot of our actions would be more congruent.
Yeah.
Instead of incongruent.
Yes.
You know, and so you find that even with even on a race level, somebody, oh, I like this race, but you know, they're taking so many of our jobs or something. Yeah. You know, I like people, but yeah. Is like
big.
It's a huge but. and whatever they said prior, that but negates it.
Yes.
It's no longer. I don't really feel this way, you know.
Right.
Like, I love them, but that's a nice shirt, but. And so we have these. We use words and that don't properly identify how we really feel about something.
No. It's interesting on a day-to-day basis when we ask another person, how are you doing? And the other person says, how are you doing? We never even answer the question. And to sit down and, shall I say, slow everything down and really think about the question, examine oneself to see how one is really doing, and then to open up and actually share that conversation or have that conversation with another person, you rarely see that. You rarely see two people really sitting down and wanting to know how the other is doing. Because we're always go, 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 go. I got to go somewhere. I got to be somewhere. I have to do this. I have to do that. And we never make time, for lack of better words, to smell the roses. To actually really allow that moment or that experience to touch us. You know, Jim Rohn mentions that a lot of times, you know, just let it touch you. Or if something is not going the way that we would like for it to go, you gave a good example about being on the road. Someone's in the slow lane, honk, honk, honk. They're not moving over. You're trying to get around, but then someone zooms around you. And so it's just a frustrating, you know, you can feel yourself getting all tense and tight and your breathing is all sporadic and so forth. And Jim Rohn, he talks about just have childlike curiosity. And just be like, why is this happening? Again, going back to slowing down and just asking why. And sometimes we don't even understand why we're upset or worked up. It could be over something just really stupid. You know, that saying that it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, it could have been something very tiny, nothing huge or a big deal at all, but we had so much baggage. We had so much dirt that we've been shoveling or sweeping under the rug, ignoring, trying to avoid. And then before we know it, that unique moment, someone driving slow in front of us, was just that little straw that broke us, and then we're, you know, and then we act crazy. But thing is, it goes back to, as you had rightly pointed out, this level of maturity. Because, mailman.
Oh, okay.
So it's just that we never stop. Excuse me. Smoothie. We never stop to truly look within ourselves and, of course, inquire about or ask or question, why am I acting or thinking or doing or behaving in such a way that externally comes out either as an expression of anger and frustration. And so NLP, it really encourages us that if you want to make nice progress, you have to slow down. You have to, you'll see two words. You'll see the word association, and then you also see the word dissociation, or to dissociate with something. So there may be certain things that we've took in and made a sticky note on our mental map. Like, wow, I remember this, this moment in time, this experience, that was great, or this is horrible, you know. And in terms of with slowing down and looking at everything, really just, in one sense, what they normally say is, look at play around with the submodalities of things. Looking at the emotions. How did we feel about a certain situation? Again, getting back to the association, dissociation. And certain situations that were wonderful experiences, like reliving them. And then other situations that were not pleasant, look at them through dissociation, meaning not to allow ourselves to feel it again, but look at it from a distance, and just kind of play with the submodalities of it in terms of how it makes us feel while looking at it from a distance. Do we still have the same feeling or traumatic experience that we had when we originally experienced it, now that we're looking at it from a distance, and basically just taking a look at all the various different things that have happened in that unique situation, and then trying to learn from it and see, okay, I acted this way, maybe I could actually act and respond another way. And maybe the reason why I acted this way is because I didn't listen carefully to what the person said. So I misunderstood, took it a whole wrong direction. I got worked up, and then I came back with harsh words. And so just, again, slowing down and just looking at situations that we may go through and experience, and just learning from them, seeing how we can actually learn from those situations.
That's a really important point, disassociation. That reminds me of a very simple NLP exercise. And the one exercise was, the example was that, say you may be afraid of heights, or, excuse me, I think it was roller coasters. And so what was suggested was that that person who is afraid of the roller coaster, they sit in their mind, they're watching from a third person perspective, or second person. They're up there, second person, I guess that would be.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be first person.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be on the actual ride, but like a second person or something like that, yeah.
So what they're doing is they're sitting like a very comfortable distance from the actual ride themselves. And they're looking at like an image of themselves on the roller coaster, but they're extremely far away. And so they're seeing this person going up and down the roller coaster, and they're watching this happening, but they're disassociated from actually being on the roller coaster.
Right.
And so the exercise itself allows for a person to overcome a particular fear, because it allows them to disassociate from the actual position and empowers them. So when they do step on a roller coaster, then they can see, oh, somebody else just sees me down there like this, and I'm, and it's a very simple technique, but it's extremely effective.
Yes, very powerful.
So there's many things that we can. This mind is a computer, and it is software in our minds, and we can always update it. We can reprogram it. We can different experiences that don't sit well with us or we don't like. We can reprogram it in such a way where, of course, the experience is there. It's not like it never happened. Like Men in Black. Just take a little flashy thing. Just take a look at this light. But what happens is the perspective changes, and once the perspective changes, then our view, how we perceive it, changes.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, because our perception is our reality.
It's our reality, but it's also in our head too.
Right.
Sticking with that example, like the roller coaster, I thought was a brilliant example. In NLP, it discusses so many different things, but it mentions how when we're receiving information, the mind does three things when it stores that information. It'll generalize it. So maybe it was an experience that we had similar to it, and so we'll generalize it. It may delete some information, and then it'll distort information as well. So generalize, delete and distort. Right. So to give an example, someone at the roller coaster, and if you were to take an image, like a picture, you know how when you ride that roller coaster, Blue Streak at Cedar Point, and then they take pictures of you. Yeah. You're on there, and you're like, ah! and they take a picture of everybody. I don't know if Blue Streak is still on, at Cedar Point out in Ohio, Sandusky, Ohio, but that was just a wonderful pastime we would have in our childhood, just going to Cedar Point and riding all the different rides. The demon drop, they'll take your picture, and you're screaming. They don't have it anymore, Okay. They took it down. I think they replaced it with like the Millennium Force, but that was back in like early 2000s when they did all that. And so you can have a snapshot, of you on that ride or of other people, families and friends and so forth. And what NLP mentions is that a lot of times those scenes in our life or experiences that we had, even though you may have a wide picture, meaning like it shows you a lot of different things, but due to deletion or distortion, we darken all the other areas around a specific point that we tend to put the spotlight on. And so if we had a bad experience, meaning like, let's say, for instance, the whole trip was so much fun, and there's only just that one ride that you got sick on, then instead of remembering the whole enjoyable experience, our mind will focus on will delete everything else that was fun and focus on just that one little moment where you got sick. And it'll put the spotlight on that. And so NLP encourages us that, hey, go back, take that moment, play in with the submodalities, make it brighter or make it dim, change it, and try to, in certain situations, relive, if it's a pleasant one, try to relive it and try to look at all other things that you had originally deleted. Try to see if you can bring it back. And then you'll see, wow, I really did have a great time. It was just only that one situation is the reason why I got sick. Or it could have been simply because you did not eat the right foods. You know how some people eat too much food, and then they get on a roller coaster that spins them around, and then they, like so. So it's like, it's not that the roller coaster made you sick. It's maybe you ate too much at that time if you look at the bigger picture. Right. And so, again, that's all about being mature. And it requires us to, again, slow things down so we can actually really take a look at the big picture and see what's actually going on. One super quick example, poison ivy or poison oak. If you go camping, you touch that poison ivy, you get this nasty rash and your skin starts to bubble up with blisters and so forth. A lot of times people tend to panic and we just don't know what to do. But what's interesting is that in nature, what grows next to the poison ivy is another herb called jewelweed, which is actually the medicine to cure the rash from coming in contact with poison ivy. And so with the NLP slowing down, sometimes playing with the light and setting and re-looking at certain experiences, we'll see that, wow, all the wonderful things that we need, in this case, if it's poison ivy, the cure is actually right there with the jewelry. So we see, due to the mind deleting things and generalizing things and distorting things, all the wonderful things that are there, we end up missing out on it. Because we only focus on this one little negative and we never got the full picture. And so we keep those experiences in our mind. We leave them as little sticky notes on our mental map. And then when we see someone, oh no, you don't want to go there. The food is not good, or this is not good, or that's not good, or blah, 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 blah. And we give our comments to others, but that's from our own perspective.
One of the things you mentioned a couple things, and the process of the mind to generalize, to delete and distort. And one of the things I like about movies are those deleted scenes. Those things I like watching because it's like, wow, they should really put this in the movie.
Yeah, like director cut or something like that. The
so
clips from the floor or something like that, director's floor or whatever.
And then you see, this was actually really good. And that's one of the things too, is that, like you mentioned, you may have had a great ride at the amusement park, but that one ride that messed up everything. And this is that distortion aspect.
Yes.
We distort information, and so, or that person's really mean, or that person is this or that, and this is really the only time you've had that experience with the person, and it's funny. It was sad and funny simultaneously. It's more sad than it is funny, I guess. But when I would hear a complaint about somebody I know, and I think to myself, but weren't you just, the other day just talking about how good they were and how nice and how everything was, and now today they're terrible? Just in one day? Really? We're just like that. and so because we have these and this really genius, this generalization, this deletion, and this distortion in our mind when we're experiencing something. We do not. Oh yes, negative bias. Thank you for mentioning that. So we have this. We just see from our limited perspective lack of grace that we want others to have. We want others to have with us. But that person that we're experiencing, it's been the only experience negative experience we have. But that one experience, I'm done. You're dead to me. Yeah. You're dead to me. And it's sad.
Very sad.
It's very sad because we'll lose friendships that of people that are our genuine well-wishers.
Yes.
And they will they say something that rubs us the wrong way. It's a wrap, What was the old Roman days? And that's in our 10-year, 5-year, 20-year relationship.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say some relationships you gotta come off.
Yeah, some are toxic.
Some are extremely toxic.
You have no other choice but to,
You gotta snip that thing out.
You got to cool it down.
Nip tuck. So this is and then the other thing that you mentioned, this whole idea of generalization, we see when we're experiencing, unfortunately, with people, particular race of people, we may generalize.
Yeah.
Oh, they're just they're just like that.
Yeah.
And
stereotypes.
And then we see something that's good. We're going to delete that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we're going to see something that is shown on only at select times, and that's going to be our distortion. Yeah. We're going to this is how they always are. Mm-hmm. They're like this all the time. They're inbred this way. They're and so even with people, we think like this. And I remember I used to work at this fine dining restaurant, and I was it was a Sunday, and I was serving this table full of bridge players, and they it was time for the noon specials. So I give this elaborate detail of what's on the menu, mm-hmm. and there's like 4 or 5 of them, right? And they all look at each other like, "Wow, he speaks so nicely. Almost as if I wasn't even there.
Wow.
and
Wow.
but this indicates the kind of perception that they have, the distortion,
Yes.
and what they've deleted.
Yeah.
And so we do that with so many things, and we don't even think about it. We just generalize, we delete, and we distort. And we don't really get the opportunity to really experience something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we don't question our filtration process. It just comes in and generalize, delete, distort.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate because it only creates more division and it destroys relationships. Individuals that maybe they know something that would be beneficial and helpful to you. Could be a tool, like it could be a skill or an ability. Some important information. Maybe they could save your life. If something happens, they can save your life. But because we allow our immaturity to get the best of us, because we did not question our upbringing, our values, and so forth, and we allow ourselves to proceed with a distorted image or of reality, just generalization, or we just omit and delete, that that we never give ourselves a chance to have deep, meaningful relationships. And then what you tend to find is that because those bonds in terms of relationships, they're fewer and fewer and fewer, that you end up finding yourself alone, as if on your own little island kind of a thing. And when there isn't anyone to speak, or have a conversation, or someone that connects with you and you connect with them, and like this bonding on so many different levels, then no wonder why we hear so many different individuals, even celebrities, committing suicide. Because they feel, or certain individuals may feel, that they don't have anyone to communicate with or to talk to, or who's a friend, or they just don't feel like anyone cares. And so it causes problems, when we allow this mind of ours to move in that direction of deleting, generalizing, and distorting. Of course, that may be a bit of a crude example, but just the point that we do miss out on learning new things, learning new cultures, and so forth. I'll give you an example. Just something really simple and subtle. When it came to counting and numbers, most of the Greeks and so forth didn't know anything about zero. And even when they were building the first computer, CPU, central processing unit, they were trying to figure out all this, the calculations and computations and all these different things that need to go into it. But most of them didn't know anything about zero. Until there was one gentleman from India. And in Indian culture, they have a word called sunya, which means zero. And so from that, when you introduce zero to the equation, now you can have binary, 0, 1, like this. And then they were able to create computers and stuff going forward. So it's really interesting that, again, relationships, if we delete, distort, generalize, create stereotypes, prejudice, continuously dividing and separating each other, what do we say? Divided, we fail. United, we stand, but divided, we fall. Yeah. So when we're constantly dividing and separating and isolating ourselves, then it causes problems. But in the sense of business, you want that. As crazy as it sounds, but you want it. Because if one is suffering in some way, shape, or form, if you want to sell somebody something, hey, if you have this car, then you can have all these friends. Or if you buy just this tool at the hardware store, or if you live in a certain area, if you do this or you play these video games, whatever like that, then you can actually have more friends. So you can say economy, there has to be some need. There has to be some void in someone's life. And so if there's a void, then society, business will try to play on that emptiness or that void and try to fill it with something, which unfortunately causes even further separation and distraction. When I was a child growing up, yes, we had video games, but up and down the street in the neighborhood, we all played. We all knew our neighbors and so forth. But nowadays, 30 years later, 40 years later, you don't really see too many kids playing out in the streets.
Or outside.
Or outside, yeah.
Yeah.
They're in their own little room playing video games. And so then we have an issue with social skills to, communicate and socialize with people. Again, just further, breaking up families, breaking up homes and so forth. So, I know I'm mentioning about a lot of different things, but just getting back to the point that when we allow our minds to dictate to us without us questioning, without us saying, well, why is this person speaking to me like this? Maybe they're saying certain things to me. Maybe the way they're verbalizing it, maybe I don't agree with the tone of voice. But maybe the information and message that they're trying to relate to me, maybe they're saying it to me because they care about me and they're trying to protect me. Just like if someone is in a house that's on fire and the person needs to get out, you're not going to gently knock on the door and say,
please help me.
Rapunzel, let down your hair. You're not going to be nice and gentle about it. You may have to say, yo, you need to get up. You need to get out. Your house is on fire, whatever it may be. Or if someone's falling asleep at the wheel, you're not going to say, oh, don't worry about it. Just
keep resting.
Just resting. No. Just rest. If that happens, you're both in the same car. The person sleeping behind the wheel could be an accident.
Exactly.
So sometimes you may have to speak a certain way. The information, maybe the tone of voice may not be most pleasant, but just like an alarm clock, it can't be pleasant either.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to wake up.
Please arise. Lift. Gently.
No, it cannot be like Coming to America, where they're like playing violins and stuff like that.
Thank you for this wonderful awakening. Like there's a term in Vedic culture. It's called Desa Kalapatra, time, place, and circumstance. And sometimes, depending on the circumstance, you may have to do something completely different. So but most of the time, it's not an emergency for most people. Right. We can definitely speak to someone compassionately.
Yes.
Even if they're not using their full brain. So this is still, we can still do that, and we should be able to give each other the same level of consideration that we will want other people to give us. I mean, that's the human thing to do.
Yeah.
That's how we. I mean, and it's sad because even animals act better than humans do. Like as far as compassion.
That's true.
Even the carnivorous ones, for the most part. But still, we have a lot that we can do better as human beings. And so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I very grateful for those who have stayed and commented. If this meant something to you, please like, please share, and therefore we can do our best to serve others with the little knowledge that we do know about NLP, about how to really work on oneself and to develop better habits to become a more responsible human being. So thank you so much, and until next Friday, flex.